Hey everyone, welcome to the Camino Cafe. I am so thrilled that you decided to tune in today, whether you are listening to our podcast or you are watching our YouTube channel. I am thrilled to have you at the Camino Cafe and at our table. As you know, if you've been listening to our show, this is all about pilgrim stories. And my only hope is to allow pilgrims to be able to tell their stories and to motivate people to go on the Camino. So I'm glad you're here, and I know you're going to enjoy our conversation today. I am sitting here with Raymond Powell and Dominique Powell, and they are a married couple. They are American pilgrims, and they are based out of California, and they have a really exciting story. We've been talking probably for the past 45 minutes before we started the recording. I wish I'd started it sooner because they have a great story. So welcome to the Camino Cafe, Dominique and Raymond. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. And call me Ray.
Okay, great. I meant to ask you that earlier. So, wow, so much to talk about. So not only are you pilgrims, but you've taken the huge step that I think just about everybody I walked with and just about every American pilgrim says to me at some point is we all have a dream of buying an albergue along the Camino route. You guys have done just that. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about your pilgrimage and anything else that comes up. So could we start first to just kind of put some framework about all of this is I think I read, Ray, on a post somewhere that you and your son first did the first pilgrimage?
My dad is, at the time in 2018, he was 83. And we walked the Camino. He started in St. John with my sister. And they walked into through Pamplona to, I think, Burgos, and then she had to leave. He ended up feeling like at 83 that he had bit off more than he could chew. So he ended up taking a bus and a train to Sarria. I flew to Madrid and then met him in Sarria, and then we walked the last 117 kilometers together. And that was a true test of, you learn something about yourself in each Camino. Mine was patience, because it was an 83-year-old man does not walk very fast, but he was amazing. And that was in May of 2018. And Dominique was very jealous because she has wanted to do it her whole life, and she's very Catholic. And so I promised her we would do it in October of 2018.
Okay, so then you went back together?
Right.
We did.
Okay.
But one of the big things that I love that he said, and this made it even more exciting for me, is he said when he walked with his father, he learned more about his father in 1 month of time with him than he did in 53 years.
Right. It was really a gift to have your adult parent that is still of sound mind and body, and really a body, because it was amazing to see him walk, 25 kilometers in a day. And I did want to put a pillow over his head because he snored like crazy, but luckily we were in private rooms, but I had to sleep with my dad, which was kind of weird. But yeah, it was an entertaining walk.
Oh, you're giving me chills right now because I was supposed to walk with my dad actually in 2020. We were supposed to walk in May, and that of course got canceled. And now he and I are planning on walking in spring of 2022. So I think he'll be 77, 76. I hope I'm not aging you, Dad. Don't get mad at me. But I am so excited to get that opportunity to walk with him. I'm so glad you had that with your dad.
Well, and in 2019, he did Porto to Santiago with my stepmom. And so, and he's 86 now, and he's planning on a trip to Croatia. So he's very active.
All right, we got to give a shout out. What's your dad's name?
It's Richard Powell.
Yep. All right.
He's a retired physician.
Yep.
I hope you're watching, Richard. Hello. And that's fantastic. So was it when you were with your dad that you first saw the albergue?
Right. We walked by it and it was closed because Gordon, the owner, had fell ill. And so it had been not used since 2016. And so I saw the Se Vende sign on the big red doors. And, when I was walking even with him, I was like, God, I just love this area. And we're at a point in our career that we were starting to look at it. Our kids are getting old enough that we're almost empty nesters. And so when Dominique and I walked it in October of 2018, we really went by it again. And then we started the process of trying to make contact.
We knew it.
Yeah.
We knew
It
when we
was-
saw rush hour traffic was a farmer with his 10 cows going across the village.
Yeah.
We knew it was us,
Yeah,
Big change in California, right?
right?
exactly.
So let's back up. So where was the first seed planted for the Camino? Because it sounds like, Dominique, you had known about it for some time.
We had known about it for a while. And then I have another friend here in California who was born and raised in
Santiago.
the Santiago area. She's married to a local dentist here. And her daughter and our daughter are friends, and they were walking it. And I really wanted to do it. So we started looking at it then, and just the timing was just never right.
Well, she actually ran a business where she actually would take a group of people and do the concierge type
Oh,
of
wow.
Camino, where she set
Mhm.
up all the albergues and
Nice.
walked with them to give them a historical tour. And she actually, what's the name of in Vigo? And she walked some of the
Yeah, Ponte Verde,
Portuguese, but
mhm.
Ponte Verde.
Ponte Verde, that's
Yeah,
where
is
she's from.
from.
And she's
Yeah.
born and raised, all of her family is still there. She met her husband when she was traveling in the US, back in her 20s, and they got married. And so she relocated obviously to the US. So,
Wow.
And my parents used to take us to Spain since I was about 6 years old, and I've been to Lugo and walked around the Roman walls when I was a kid, and so we had known about it for quite a while. But and of course we watched The Way when it came out, and so all of that was kind of the the initiated of it. But when my dad decided he wanted to do it, my sister and I were like, "Ooh, Dad's 83. He wants to go climb over the Pyrenees by himself." So we both kind of ponied up and said, "You walk the first part, and I'll walk the last part." And so it became a neat experience.
Wow.
but just the pictures and the every day they would send me pictures, or he'd tell me about the day, and I knew then I was going. I knew with or without him I was going.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, you had to have felt so happy for him, but at the same time, wanting to be there.
Mhm.
So was it in the back of your mind pre-walk that someday you'd want to live there and own an albergue, or did that kind of
No, I
develop
think
as you
so.
walked?
I think it came on the walk itself, and then
Okay.
we had a kind of a dream when we got back. But you go back into that. Well, I think people have written about the post Camino depression. When you're like, oh my God, I got to go back to my real world. But we started attempting, and I actually wrote this in the blog on our website about the attempts that we made to try to get in touch with the owner. Was a real event for several months before he actually responded. And
Wow.
and then we started making contact, and I sent out my first email I think in October of 18, and we actually took possession of it in June of 19. So it was only really 6-7 months, and we completed the process to actually buy the property.
And I think I shared with you, prior to us taping was, part of that post, Camino depression was you come back and you look at everything that we've accumulated. And, like I said, we had a successful medical practice. And so, we lived we just sold our big, beautiful home, but we raised our children in a beautiful home. And, you just look at everything and you think, what a gluttonous lifestyle we have. And not realizing it's that way until you go there and see just how simple life is and how real people can be in a very vulnerable position, if that makes sense, when you're out walking and you just met people as a real person.
Right? It's like everything's just stripped away, and
Exactly.
And you just have these such real conversations that I feel like I just can't seem to get here in the US. It just, there's something about.
No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, we met someone, we started walking with her towards two different parts of the Camino. Her name is Sherry Armstrong from Texas. And it was neat. I mean, she was, for her 50th birthday, she always wanted to travel. She was very Catholic, knew about the Camino as well. And she just did the journey herself because her husband, didn't want to travel at the time. And so she did that for her 50th. She said, I've never traveled alone. I wanted to do something by myself. And we just came back and just started. That was someone that just for some
She's
reason
become
really,
a good friend. I mean,
it was just something that, I don't know, just different people like that just clicked, and we thought, gosh, it's so real.
Yeah. What do you think it is about the Camino that causes that?
I think it's the fact that you are out there by yourself or with somebody else, and it's walk, eat, sleep, and drink. And, there's nothing else. You're doing nothing else but thinking and processing it. And it depends on how much electronics you take with you, but you're relatively unplugged and you get to kind of really soul search, and I think that's where we're at a good position, but it's amazing. People think, oh, we just bought a Camino or bought an albergue and just start doing it. It's a 2 to 3 year process of the buying was fast, but then it's like, oh, by the way, you bought a business, but you need to have a business visa and you have to have a residency visa. And oh, by the way, did you know you have to pay taxes in Spain now? And, and if you stay more than 183 days, they tax you on your worldwide income. And so there's all this stuff that I've become an encyclopedia of the legalities of it, but then it's the reality of trying to sell all of your stuff and move to Spain is not easy.
No, and are you in the process of doing that? Are you really going to sell everything?
Oh, I should show you our living room right now. It's all wardrobe boxes, and it's going into storage, and we're selling all of our furniture and trying to liquidate.
Well, we're going, like I said, from 4,200 square feet to how big is the storage unit?
Yeah, to a
like 42 feet.
Well, it's 72 feet, but it's going to have 2 of our vehicles in it too. So, and we still have to come back because we still do have a business, and we're going to be operating it a little bit from a distance. But this year, because of the pandemic still and the lack of occupancy of only 30%, we're just going to run it September and October. And then, our tourism license and the Galician tourism Jefe comes and actually inspects your albergue and looks at everything, but it's April 1st to October 31st. You can ask for an extension, which I might do into November, but we'll come back from November until March. And, right now we're in a rental, so we'll be homeless when we come back. We have our RV, but we have to find another piece of property, and we're moving to South Carolina at the same time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So much. Okay. So first off, I just really want to say to you guys, I really feel for you, because as you were really going through this, that's when COVID hit. So
right.
What would have in itself been a very trying time, trying to figure out how to move to Spain and do all the things that were necessary in order for you to start this business, was super complicated by what was happening with COVID. And while I know many people have suffered greatly during it, and, I want to acknowledge that, but also say to you guys that I really feel for you for having that on top of what you're trying to do. And that must have been very stressful. I mean, I know some of your posts about just the traveling, trying to get some paperwork done sounded really, really stressful.
Oh yeah, it was.
Well, we just put so much money into it. We actually, like we said to you earlier, we actually hired a Spanish law firm thinking that it would make the transition smoother, because we had to deal with San Francisco's office. Right. And the office was definitely, it was definitely trying. I mean, there were different things that happened along the way, but just getting appointments and scheduling the time to drive, 4 hours there for appointments and paperwork. And we never got a solid answer, from different people, on what the process was like.
Well, the worst part was not even San Francisco. It's once you get to Spain, you still have multiple steps you have to do in Spanish government offices in a pandemic with a mask on, trying to understand somebody in a foreign language where you can't even see their mouth move. With a muffled voice, and your Spanish is un poquito. It was, and they don't speak English, and they don't care. They don't care, and it was a real challenge, And my Spanish was decent enough that I think I answered the questions right. But even for that process, we had the attorneys helping us get our appointments, which are called citas, and all of it had to be done online to get the appointments, and it was at least a month out before you could actually get to that appointment. And most of it's in the police offices, the police stations, which are very intimidating, and the doors are locked, and you have to come in with a mask and, do the hand sanitizer 16 times. And then what was supposed to take 90 days, that they say the government takes 90 days, was taking 180 days, because it was so delayed, having all the stuff have to go to Madrid to come back up to Galicia.
Which was shut down as well.
So it was a real... And there were some times where the stuff that we were supposed to have done, even though it was electronic, they didn't have record that it was done, even though we know it was done. And it delayed us where we had to fly back to California and then turn around a month later to fly back to Spain in the middle of a pandemic to try to get the appointment.
It was an expensive year. I mean, a couple times we
was-
were like, is this really worth it? You know, I mean, or should we just, you know, sit back for a year or two? But
Well,
pushed
we've
through.
gotten so far into the process, but even now, this is the hard part for 2020 is we didn't even get to pick up our TIE cards, our residency cards, until 6 months after they had been approved, and they're only good for a year. So at the end of July this
Start
month,
again.
we have to start the process to renew, but you have to prove that you've been in country for 180 days. And
Right.
it's only July, and so how do you prove something when you're still got
And-
5 more months that you could physically be there, but you haven't done your 180 days yet?
because we missed, you know, 3 months just because of the pandemic. So
So we're hoping that they're going to be lenient on that, because they literally look at your passport and they look at the stamps. And supposedly, I don't know how they do it because it's so complicated.
I can't read the stamps.
The
but-
immigration guy stamps whatever page he wants to, and you can't read them. So we're hoping they'll just kind of pencil whip that and approve us, you know, but
But I will say, I mean, the Spanish government has been very helpful. If you can find the right person, I mean, that's the other part where we are, you know, we've been really blessed with that. I mean, our neighbors have helped with Spanish. We've had gone to some of the government offices and, you know, if they aren't able to understand us and we can't do it between Google Translate his Spanish and their, you know, they find somebody that can
Yeah.
help us. So they've been wonderful as far as taking care of us and wanting the process to be easy.
and they'll get their personal phone out and try
Yeah.
to translate, and they're
Wow.
helpful.
It's intimidating, but once you get past that, I feel like it's as frustrating as it's been.
Yeah.
It's been an overall positive experience.
After the meeting, you definitely need a cerveza con limón.
Yeah, definitely. every meeting.
I'm like, what
Every
kind of
meeting was a-
self-care? Yeah, what kind of self-care are you two practicing? Because I mean, this was a stressful year and a half in itself. And to be going through a process like this and selling your family home and doing all the things that have been necessary during a very trying time in itself, that wow, hats off to you. And I do want to say to viewers and listeners that, you know, the process, I've just started my application in trying to move to Spain for a year. And I will say that the process is challenging. There's a lot of administrative work to it, and it is a big deal, obviously, to move to another country. And you two really took the next level. I'm just trying for a non-lucrative visa to test it out, but you took the next step, which is the business visa, which takes a little bit longer and requires a lot more work. I just wanted to get an idea to give viewers and listeners an idea of, from the time you submitted all of that paperwork in San Francisco to the day you got the approval to go, how long would you say that time frame
Little
was?
extra longer.
Well, we submitted it in February, and then the pandemic hit
In
in
March.
March, and I was in Spain and had to come back. And then they didn't contact us again until September.
Yeah.
And then they literally said, your visa's ready, come pick it up.
Okay.
And so again, now I understand they're mailing stuff. We had to physically drive to San Francisco, which is a 4.5-hour drive, and then buzz on the door, and then they come out because they treat you like you're a leper. And they pretty much with long latex gloves, they hand you their visa and run back in the door.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
there's
goodness.
no other conversation. It's like, have a nice day, you know?
All right.
So then, and what was even worse for us is before we actually, well, no, you have 90 days once you get that to enter Spain and finish the process. Well, we had to come back because of the issues with certain parts of the paperwork not getting done. So in order to go back again, by the time we got to go back again,
Oh.
that visa had expired.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
That
so
was the-
literally we were showing the American Airlines an expired visa along with the deed of our property and a letter from the attorney and all of this stuff to convince them that the thing that really helped was we had an appointment piece of paper, a CITA, that showed that we were going there to pick up our TIE cards. They were already done. We just needed to pick them up. And we were able to sweet talk the lady at the San Francisco airport to let us on the airplane. And that was that most stressful thing that I actually blogged about, because that was a challenge on top
Oh,
of
yeah.
having to be COVID tested and everything else.
Just reading your blog post was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe what the process was like for you. And certainly, viewers and listeners, we don't want to scare you off from the process of doing this.
No.
They have certainly completed this during probably one of the most challenging times.
Exactly.
And from what it's looking like right now for the non-lucrative visas, they're looking at somewhere between a month to 90 days for getting approval. So if it's your dream out there, please don't let us be dissuading you in any way. So
I
let's
want you to do well.
Yeah. And I think it's just, it's a big deal to move to another country. So, probably shouldn't be that easy, but of course we all like things to be easy.
Right.
Let's skip to, I'm wondering, as you're walking and you're spending the night in different albergues and whatnot, is there one that has kind of been a model for you or a muse that you're like, they set the bar, and or a couple of albergues that you'd want to mention, or maybe we'll start there. Is there one that you would?
Well, because I did it twice, the ones I can think of, and unfortunately, when I was just there,
I know that's my favorite.
In May, it was actually closed and for sale was an albergue, Marcadorio. I think it's Marcadorio. It's even before our albergue. It's maybe only 17 kilometers outside of Sarria, and it's got a really wonderful little restaurant and then a separate building, which is the albergue. And it was a private room that we stayed in, but it had fantastic food, and it was very relaxing, kind of a outdoor area that you could sit on. And the only other one I can think of was past Portomarin was one that my dad and I stayed in, which was the Albergue Gonzar. Which was really nice. Can you think of one?
Gonzar, and
Gonzar,
then
Gonzar.
Yeah, and then the other one was the one where it was kind of an odd one. We got into we were walking and we had to call them to be picked up.
Barbadello.
Barbadello.
Barbadello. You came into this little village and they said, when you get here, go into the second bar on the left and call us and we'll come pick you up. And we're walking back and forth, and the lady that owned the bar came out and said, "Are you looking for something?" And we were like, "Albergue Barbadello," and she said, "Oh," and she got on the phone, and literally within 2 minutes they were there to pick us up. But it was probably 3 kilometers off the Camino, so they actually came and picked you up, and it was a wonderful.
Oh, it was like a resort.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
really
nice. And we were there, I guess, when that was towards the end of October, because I was cold that night, and they don't start the heat until November.
Yeah. But in the morning, at night when you eat, they give you a little map that shows you, hey, when you get up in the morning, you go out this road, and that was kind of a little bit sketch because it was still dark and there's no markers until you get back onto the Camino, and so you're using your headlamp to try to find to make sure you turn the right way, But it was a very nice albergue.
That one was nice. I mean, we met a lot of people. It was a communal dinner, and so it was fun, and you got to hear other people's stories. And I think we met some people from Germany there, and and some other just Spanish people walking. So that was kind of nice.
Wow. So take us through kind of, if one of our viewers or listeners, we're going to stay with you. Well, let's first talk about, if you could just share with everyone what the name of the town is, where your albergue is, and at what stage they could potentially stay with you.
Right. So if you leave Sarria, which is where a lot of people do the last 115 kilometers, we're at the 94.1 kilometer mark from Santiago. And so the name of the village is Vilacha. And it's 2.8 kilometers before Portomarin.
Oh, okay. So they would likely stay there instead of going all the way to Portomarin.
Right. So some people like it because Portomarin's a decent sized town with a lot of albergues, and some people like that because it's a very blessed, a lot of people, a lot of activity, a lot of restaurants and bars. But some people want more of a quiet experience with just like
more of an albergue, a true
8 or 10, and it's a farmhouse. It's the lore is anywhere from 150 to 500-year-old granite farmhouse that's been converted into the albergue, and we've done a lot of work on it to get it up to speed.
Well, I will say this: I was so tired that day, and coming into Portomarin and those steps. Oh, yeah. So, if anyone's tired, they should stop at your place and brave those steps the next morning. So. Let's talk about your vision. You know, you haven't been able to open yet, but if I were to come stay with you, you know, or one of our viewers or listeners were to stay with you, what do you kind of foresee their stay being like? Say they arrive at, I don't know, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., whatever. What would the day and evening be like if they stay with you?
You start.
So we actually just talked about this today, so it's kind of funny. Because we talked about what people's expectations are, and we want to exceed those expectations. We don't want someone to expect something. We want them to come in, gosh, I didn't expect this here. So our goal is for it to feel like you
our
know,
home is our home.
I mean, we want people to feel like they're guests in our home and be treated as if they were in our home.
Right.
So,
And, you know, to be very comfortable beyond, I mean, granted, we have bunk beds and all, but we want it to be where it's like, oh my God, this is so much more comfortable than what we expected. And I love to cook. And so I've got some specialty dishes, and I love making creme brulee. And so things that you would not expect to see on an albergue. It's like, oh, I'm having creme brulee for dessert, you know, things like that.
Creme brulee.
Yeah, and so, you know, and I love to bake. And so even though the Spanish bread is fantastic, and we have the bread truck every Tuesday and Saturday come through the village honking his horn, I'm also going to be making some puff pastries and things that I've got specialties of that are filled with, she's from South Carolina, so she knows how to can vegetables and fruit and preserve. So we're going to do some fresh things. And our property is,
garden.
yeah, our property, we've really planted a huge garden, and I've got fruit trees already going, and blackberries and raspberries. And so we're going to have a lot of farm to table. And with our villagers that are fantastic, they provide us with hundreds of pounds of tomatoes that they just can't eat themselves.
Tomatoes, potatoes, bell peppers,
hot peppers,
cabbage,
cabbage, kale. I mean, eggs. I mean, it's just amazing, the stuff. And so we're really working with them so that when we open, we can provide, you know, some financing for them as well, and provide the vegetables right to us so that I have something fresh to cook with.
Well, and you know, a typical pilgrim meal does not necessarily contain that many vegetables, right? And so anytime we can get something like that to nourish our bodies, you know, it just felt so good while we were walking. I've looked at photos, of course, of what you've been doing there so far that you've shared on Facebook, and it just looks lovely. The courtyard.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like that.
And I actually, while I was there, and this is learning a lot on YouTube, I actually built a whole complete outside shower and bathroom for the pilgrims. And so it's not just for the pilgrims staying with us, but also, you know, as pilgrims are walking by, they need a restroom. And we actually put in a 4,000 liter new septic tank. So we've done a lot. It's costed us a small fortune, but it's something that's going to be a labor of love for us. And so we built an outside new courtyard as well as a garden area in the back.
Just to have a little bit of luxury, you know, just so when people come in, they feel like, you know, it's a long way, and you know this from walking. I mean, a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, aren't allowing people to go in and use their restrooms. You know, and we thought, gosh, we've got to do something, because people, otherwise they trash the Camino with, you know, this
toilet paper,
what they refuse to.
Yes. Now, obviously, I feel the Spanish people are just fantastic to us as pilgrims. But now you are kind of going behind the curtain, right? Now you're becoming part of the supporters of the pilgrims. So I'm wondering, are you getting that same reception to the people in your village? How are they taking you guys as newcomers?
Oh, they're the sweetest things on the planet. Probably the one that we have one neighbor who's an expat that seems to be the sky is falling kind of woman, but all the villagers are just incredibly receptive and just super sweet.
We've been very blessed. I mean, we couldn't have picked a better community to move into. I mean, with as far as support and, you know.
But I think it's because, you know, they have a work ethic that's from sun up to sundown. And when they've seen our work ethic and how much we're putting into it and how much we're, in a way, beautifying the area, like even in our courtyard, as you're walking through the main part of Vilacha, I'm out there in the morning with a shovel cleaning up and, you know, weed eating, and I weed eat the whole neighborhood. And I've helped Marie Carmen fix her chicken coop doors. And things like that. And they instantly want to pay me. And I'm like, no, you're, one of my friends, and the next thing I know, I've got a dozen eggs in my refrigerator, and so they're very, very proud people, and they're very uncomfortable getting gifts or having somebody give them something because they're not used to it, and so we usually, whenever we come from California, we bring them Jelly Bellies or some California wine or something that they would never get in Spain. And they're very appreciative.
They thought the Jelly Bellies, they just remember that from Ronald Reagan.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Yeah.
So you were now I think, Ray, you were there just recently and
I
came
got back in late May.
Late May, okay. So have you heard any reports on how things are in your village?
Oh,
yeah, I just actually communicated with Marie Carmen, and that she just says there's more and more pilgrims, and a lot of teenage pilgrims, and none of them are wearing masks. And you can see the locals in Portomarin that are wearing masks. The locals wearing masks, but the pilgrims aren't. And that has some contention for them, I think, because they're still, and I think some of it is even what they hear, and they've got a limited amount of news press, that it's still like, a very scary thing for them. And they are down into I think the 30s, 30-year-olds that are getting the vaccine. And they did, while I was there, the 70 and 80-year-olds had already been vaccinated when I was there I was there March through May. And, but yeah, it's, nothing's really changed dramatically except just more and more pilgrims.
Yeah.
So. Are most of the residents in your village, are they mostly elderly?
Well, the people that we communicate with, I guess the definition of elderly, they're my age, but some of the farmers,
they're very young. They're very young.
And so thanks. And so, but some of the farmers are in their 70s and 80s, but they have sons that are already taking over the farm, kind of thing, and they're only in their 30s. But we have quite a few kids riding through the neighborhood. We've got probably 4 or 5
little boys,
little hellions that are like 8 and 11 years old. So there's still some fresh young blood there too.
Yeah. So what did your dad say when you said you were going to buy this place?
Oh, he is so jealous. He, we've been all over Spain, and there's an area south of Granada called the Albergues. It's a mountainous region that almost looks like the Greek structures where everything's whitewashed. And he's always had a dream of just being a goat farmer in the Albergues. And so he's very, very jealous, and he wants to come, and he's seen it. When he walked the Portuguese, my son and I, when we took possession of it in June, we drove to Santiago and met them when they finished, and we drove them back so they could see the albergue. And that's before we had done a lot of work. And we flew my mother up when we were there in March of this year from Malaga. So she spent a week with us there as well. So both of my parents have seen it, and all of our kids have been as well.
All the kids been there.
Yeah.
No, the kids. So now they have 6 children, and you have a future pilgrim on your hands. So I just wonder if you wanted to share what your daughter's getting ready to do.
Yeah, so she just graduated from college in May from the College of Charleston, and she has always wanted to walk it, and her dad and she walked a little piece of it, and she said, I want to do it by myself. And
she presented us with a 7-page PowerPoint presentation yesterday of exactly her plan. She is my child, and she's got it down to the wire. Right. So she's got it down to the wire. So she's leaving right at the beginning of September and is trying to fly into Bilbao and then take a bus to St. John from there, or 2 buses, and then start the Camino.
She's going to vlog it, or whatever kids do now, vlog it, TikTok it, whatever they do. And she's just going to fund it that way. She's been working after she graduated. She's working as a waitress, just socking money away for the summer. She's working at the beach in South Carolina, and that's her plan. And so then she's thinking after that she'll do work away, or maybe teach English at one of the institutions. She's been talking to some people about that as well. So, but we're excited. I mean, it's funny that she fell in love with it. She went to Spain, 15, with a group of, teenagers on a high school trip, and she fell in love with it without us even mentioning it to her. So
she was with me in December of 19 before the pandemic. And she and I worked on the albergue for about a month right before
Right.
Christmas.
Mhm.
And it was very rainy, but we had one of the farmers, Fernando, take us to Sarria, and then we walked back. So she got to do that little leg. But it was pouring down rain and cold and windy. I think we saw 2 other pilgrims. I think they were from Korea, but she just fell in love with just the idea of it, I think.
Oh, wow. Well, that's even more special that she walked on a day where it was really challenging
Oh yeah, very.
and still wants to go back. That says a lot about her, right? Especially if you see many pilgrims, that's unusual for that stretch, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And she knows it's out there. She just read the book that we were talking to you about. And so she read that book as well. And so she's excited. I think the more she, on her PowerPoint yesterday, she had all of her, the things that she's considering with the route that she made on, where she's thinking about stopping. But we talked about walking, and we said, on the days that you feel like, hey, I mentally, physically, emotionally can't do it today, you stay an extra day, you get a hotel, but just push through it, so she doesn't feel like, oh, I have to make it to the next step. That's the fun part about the Camino. There's so many albergues along the way that, if you have a day where, hey, I'm only going to walk 5 today, I just can't do it, I'm not there, you can stop. So I'm excited. I feel like everybody should do it. I feel like it's definitely something that, you definitely learn a lot about yourself.
Well, and at 21, it's such an opportunity before she starts a career. Most of us wait until we're somewhat ending our careers to be able to have the time to do it,
Yeah. Well, just as you two are talking about all this, it just came to me of really there aren't a lot of activities, or I don't even know what to call this, but one where here's your dad in his 90s doing something that also interests your 21-year-old.
Exactly.
And I think the Camino is special when it can capture the attention of that age span. And what a special opportunity it is at any age that you do it. And I think recognizing that your Camino doesn't have to look a certain way. It can be as many days as you need. It can be whatever route you want, and you can do it at any age. And I know when I was walking, it was kind of funny. It almost, people at different ages would inspire me. I would see somebody elderly, and that was an inspiration. And then I would see someone young, and they would inspire me in a different way. So it's really cool that your whole family has become truly a Camino family.
When I was walking with my dad, and he's going along just at his really slow rate, everybody was passing us, but they'd all look back and say, oh my God, and you can hear him say, mucho viejo, and I'd say 83, and I'd say 83, and they say, ay Dios mío, and then they'd stop and start talking to us. And we met people from Argentina and Australia, and what's so neat, it's almost the way they depict it in the movie The Way, is that we met a couple that were retired dairy farmers from New Zealand, and we saw them, talked to them, we had a drink with them, but then we didn't see him for 3 or 4 days. But then all of a sudden he screams across from a little cafe, hey docs, how you doing? Because we're both doctors. And he goes, what do you do with his knee? He's got a swollen knee. And I'd say, I'd stick a fork in it, and then you'd see him at the end in the cathedral. It's such a neat experience. And then Dominique and I were walking, and there's all these people around us, and all of a sudden you turn around and you're by yourself.
It was freaky.
Just like, where'd everybody go?
And
it was so wild. And then you're walking by yourself for an hour before you see the next cafe or, albergue. And it was just really, really a special thing. I mean, it's such a neat opportunity.
We met so many different neat people. I was thinking I've been reflecting back onto the question about the different albergues. I remember the one restaurant with all the bottles, and they say at Christmas it's beautiful. Did you go to the
beer bottles? Yeah.
And they say at Christmas, what's the name of it?
I can't think of what it's called either.
Yeah. And so that was really a really fun one. That was really interesting. Right. And we met a lot of people there. We stopped there, of course, for a drink or two. Right.
Yeah.
And then we went to another one that I really liked, was the one that with the big ant that you just met.
Oh yeah, Paseo de Formiga. I think it's got a big giant like welded ants. Like an ant in the front. We took pictures with it.
Yeah.
And I actually met the gentleman. His mom actually just retired and gave him the albergue. And so Tanya had, when she was walking, she actually shared some of my home baked chocolate chip cookies with him, and they started talking, and she was like, "Oh, you got to go see him." And literally the next day he comes honking at the door, and he speaks English pretty well. And so he's kind of one of my, now he's a young guy, but he's actually giving me a lot of tutelage on how to operate the albergue, and some of the specifics about it. So super nice.
I just wanted to say, you referred to Tanya, and so Tanya, she's actually our very first podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
Podcast, and several videos into our YouTube channel. But so if you haven't watched that one, viewers and listeners, please go back and listen to it, because she has an amazing story. She's actually one of our most watched videos to date. But she has stayed at Casa Banderas, and she really helped us in connecting. So we want to give a shout out to her. And I'm so excited that she's been having pilgrims staying at her place. So anyway, I hope that people will check out her video.
She's on the Portugal way, and on the Portugal and the Portuguese, and it is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, the pictures and the videos look amazing. So she's at La Cala and Oya. Is it Oya?
Right.
Oya.
Yeah.
So La Cala and Oya. So please, folks, check that out. And I am loving seeing the connections amongst all of the albergue owners, Susie from Casa Susie, and I can really just feel this love and support that everybody has for each other, and really wanting everyone to succeed. There's definitely a feeling of abundance, and I think just like you're seeing in your village, you're bringing life to the village, you're bringing life to a place that unfortunately had closed, and they're so lucky getting 2 doctors. I'm just going to say, really busy.
Trust me, I've already helped deliver a calf, and so they came because they couldn't. His son wasn't there, and Juan is 80, I think he's 79, and he just couldn't pull hard enough. So, and they don't use surgical gloves or anything, and I'm in there just grabbing the calf's legs and helping him pull. So that was my last day before I left in May, was to help deliver a calf.
Oh my goodness. And I think about all the pilgrims that are staying with you, they're going to have the best care, literally, with 2 doctors in the house.
I'm not a physician. He's a physician.
Right.
So
I'm telling you, this is amazing. I'm just so excited for the 2 of you. I know that we are pushing our time now, and I don't want to hold you up, but I have so loved getting to know you. This has been a bigger treat than I even could have imagined. And I think anyone that stays with you is going to be so lucky.
It'll be a neat
well, you'll be there in October, so you get to come and visit.
Yeah, definitely.
I am definitely coming to visit. I want to finish up our interview. I know there's people out there listening that are planning on going soon, or hopefully this fall. So I just wonder 2 things, if you would answer. What 3 things would you tell them? Make sure you put this in your backpack. Do not walk without these 3 things. What would you guys say? And your answers can be different.
Right.
So what was my around my neck, my one that I wore, like I wore it as a ponytail holder? What is it? Almost kind of your called? Like, it's almost like your neck gaiter type thing, I guess it's a neck gaiter, right?
No, there's a word.
There's another word for it, but I wore it on my hair. I wore it on my wrist when I was crying and wiping snot from, from just, can't do this anymore. And I would wash it out every night. And that's probably my most valued possession.
A really, really good pair of very light sandals for after walking.
For after walking.
That's that. I just took some plastic Birkenstocks, and they were fantastic.
And then the other thing that we thought, in fact, we just pulled it out for Gabby, our daughter, was our inflatable pillow. Especially now, because most albergues were not allowed to give pillows and blankets and sheets. So
and a backpack or a sleeping bag liner, something that's light, for this time of the year at least, would be good.
Would be good. Those. No, really, that was probably the main thing that we didn't have blisters. I mean, a lot of people complain about the really blisters. We were, knock on wood, we're very blessed. Yes.
But I used merino wool socks and a sock liner. And so I didn't have a single issue with blisters. Those are probably the main ones.
Yeah.
What's your secret luxury item in the backpack that that you're a little embarrassed to say, this is what I wanted to walk with? Is there anything like that? Because I believe you need to have something of comfort too, right? So I had like a little comfort thing that I could put on at nighttime. Was there something that you were like, I probably wasn't necessary, but I'm really glad I had it?
Well, yeah, actually for her, because I'm a very good masseuse, is like a really good Nivea cream.
Yeah,
Something
that was,
that, you know, she
one of my
could
favorite
get
night.
her foot massage at
my
the end of
calves
the night.
at the end of the night.
It was like a little canister of, you know, like a metal canister of Nivea, which was really good.
You know, I really didn't. I mean, I think our big thing was we kind of did almost like they did on the way. We planned a really nice night in Santiago at the
At the end,
Parador.
right.
We did do that luxury, and we did schedule massages. We did schedule massages, or did
Yeah.
we? I think so. But that was probably the big thing that we did. We said, you know what, we've gone this whole time, we're going to have a nice night, and we did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I think for people that can do that, I think that is so important. And I just always encourage people to stay a couple of nights in Santiago, you know, plan if you can afford to stay time-wise and financially. There's so much to do in Santiago, but also I think it gives you a couple of days as a buffer to kind of begin to process everything that's happened on your Camino, which of course we continue for a long time.
Yeah. We stayed a little after we stayed at the Parador, we moved to another little inn, and we
Right
stayed
next
there
to it.
right next door to it. And we stayed there for 3 or 4 days. Like,
And we
it
took a
was-
bus tour to Finisterre and Murcia and
Yes.
checked that out
Yeah.
too. So
Oh, fantastic. Well, I sometimes ask if somebody's sitting on the fence, what would you say to convince them to go? But I think your whole interview has been, you know, people are going to say that, you know, we're working for the Galician Tourist Board, because I think everybody's going to want to go now.
I'll
But
tell you, I told you earlier that what really kind of the past couple of weeks when I was reading the book that I told you about was one of the quotes that was on the Camino was, it's better to die with your memories than die with your
your
dreams. And really, I think that like hit home to me for some reason. I thought, okay, that's why I'm doing all of this. And if, you know, if there's any way to share with people just how much of downsizing we're doing and getting rid of everything and just starting over, just starting a different chapter. It's gonna be
say
worth it.
that quote. Say that quote again. I want to make sure everybody
It's
hears.
better to die with your memories than die with your dreams.
That's beautiful. And, you had the book that came from. Do you
Right.
still have it handy by you, Ray?
Let me see if I've still got it up. Oops.
Yeah.
My daughter Gabby is reading it right now as we speak. Let's see, where is it? If I have it.
You just had it.
That was on her.
I don't know why I
pictures.
can't remember what it was called.
It's like
Was it
500.
Walk of a Lifetime or something by Russ
That's exactly
That's
what it is.
Yeah.
Russine. Okay. So
Yeah.
I just want to mention and give a shout out to that book, because we'll be interviewing Russ in a couple of weeks. So if you're watching or listening, you might want to pick that book up, because I
Here it
think
is.
Here it is. So it's The
There it
Walk
is.
of a Lifetime, 500 miles on the Camino de Santiago, Russ Eanes. It's Eanes.
So hey
excellent.
Russ, if you're listening, we bought your book and read it and loved it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. So you hope to be back and opening the doors at Casa Banderas about when?
1 September
Mhm.
is the goal, is to have it
Mhm.
open.
All right. So
And
I will have. Okay, I will have links to your website and your Facebook page. If there's anything else that I should have a link for, let me know, and
Okay.
we'll get that on our show notes, so that way people can make a reservation with you, because I know that has kind of been a recommendation right now during COVID times, and to give you an idea, because of course there's a lot more upkeep this year
Yeah.
with COVID requirements and whatnot. So I think
Yeah.
anything we can do as pilgrims to help those that are supporting us on the path is a nice thing to do. So I hope that I hope that the occupancy rates will be raised by that time, so you can have more pilgrims getting the opportunity to stay with you. And so thank you so very much.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
And I wanted to say, everyone that's listened today, make sure you check out their website and their Facebook page, and stay with them. I don't think you're going to regret it. And I think
Exactly.
Definitely a journey.
Yes. And you can see all the love that they have for the Camino. Their entire family are Camino people, and I couldn't think of better people to stay with when you're doing that stage. So, so listeners and viewers, please check in with us. We'll have another interview very shortly, and we're so glad that you joined us today at the Camino Cafe and joined us for this great Pilgrim talk. So, buen Camino, everyone.
And Camino.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.